I just want to remind you that this presentation is for training purposes only. And now we're going to talk about right-of-way management or performance management. This is very important because, as you know, everything that we do for as right-of-way is concerned is schedule driven. And one of the problems with right-of-way when it comes to construction is that we in the rear of the rear guard, we bring it up everything in the rear, right-of-way and utilities. We are normally the last two that have to perform our functions in order for projects to go to let. So it's very important that we have good schedule management. And one of the tools that we have is T-Pro. And we want to make sure that we keep T-Pro updated. And not only that we keep T-Pro updated, it's important that we have timely updates, and that because they are so important, because when you get ready to go into to glean information, you want to make sure that information that you need is there. And just for a few minutes, we want to talk about certification. And this is why it's so important for all the T-Pro, which is a tracking program, to make sure that all those things are up to date. Because a lot of the information that you're going to use in order to certify a project is going to come from T-Pro. So such as the pre-construction status report. All the information that's on the pre-construction status report comes from T-Pro. The right-of-way project status report, same thing. The relocation advisory service certificate. Now that's something that you as an agent will have to keep up with. And also the relocation report. That comes from T-Pro. So the information that you put in T-Pro will generate on like 3 of these reports that is very important in order when you're turning in your certification. Because the purpose of your certification is to show that all property rights have been acquired in order to go on to construction. So you want to make sure that all property rights have been acquired. And that's what the certification tells the department or the agency. And that's why you need the right-of-way improvement status report. It tells you what's going on with all the improvements, whether they are still there, have they been torn down, have they been demoed, the trade fixture and sign inventory report. It lets us know, are there any signs on the project, any billboards, anything that needs to be removed? It lets us know, have they been removed? And if they haven't been removed, when are they going to be removed? And also copies of all right of entries and options with special stipulations. So you want to make sure you got copies of all right of entries. Make sure you got copies of the options with special stipulations, because you know somebody may ask to move a driveway from station 200 plus 50 to 200 plus 75. Well, the only way that the folk in construction would know that is that they have to have a copy of the option to know that there was a special stipulation here, that we have to move this driveway another 25 feet. And also a copy of the cover sheet highlighting outstanding parcels. So you want to have a cover sheet that shows all parcels that have not been acquired up to this point. Certification. Certifications are due in the right-of-way office by the date listed on the critical event schedule. We won't talk much about the critical event schedule, but I would just tell you what the critical event schedule is. The critical event schedule is just stating that certain things have to happen at a certain time in order for right-of-way to meet its schedule. because we know that there are some built-in things that has to be done, such as relocation. We already know if a relocation offer is not made by this time, then if you're talking about 3 months later, we already know that there's no way that you can meet that letting, because the critical events that has to happen, all the things that have to be done, will not allow you to be able to complete all those things because you don't have time. So what the critical event schedule does, it says all relocation offer has to be made by May 15th if we're gonna make a November letting. So any offer that's made after May 15th will put your schedule in jeopardy. And that's what the critical event schedule does. And the certification is due at a certain time. So we want to make sure that we have the certification into the office when they need it in order to certify that all property rights have been acquired. And there are certain meetings that the department has, and we'll just talk about these briefly. And this is the final one is called a final field plan review. And a review of the final plan, specifications, special provisions, permits, right-of-way agreements. That's why right-of-way is so important for right-of-way to be there, because there are some agreements that can be made or done, and I want to make sure that those agreements, they understand that we have made certain commitments to the property owners and that these things need to be done in order to make sure that this project moves forward. And utility conflicts and resolutions. And the final field plan review shall be held at a minimum of 24 weeks prior to letting. And so that's why it's very important for right-of-way and as right-of-way agents that we be mindful of the schedules, because once we start approaching the final field plan review, we want to make sure that we have reached out to all property owners. If there's any plan modifications that need to be done, any plan revisions, that we have them in before we go to field plan review. And that way we can make sure that everything that was promised, everything that we said we was going to do, that it has already been considered and been taken care of. And the final field plan review, we want to make sure a representative from the right-of-way acquisition team must participate in the final field plan review. We need a representative there to make sure that we cover all the issues that relate to right-of-way. The right-of-way representative will discuss special conditions negotiated with the property owners. We got to make sure that if we told someone that we weren't going to disturb their fence, that those who are in construction understand that when they go to working out there, they can't disturb this fence. If we have told the property owner that we will move his driveway, once we get this field plan review, we want to make sure we discuss with construction that, hey, this driveway needs to move. And we want to make sure that every special condition that's been negotiated with the property owner is presented to those at the field plan review, and especially to those who are in construction. And also at the field plan review, the right-of-way representative will also discuss the status of the acquisition, the projected date of completion of the right-of-way acquisition, because one of the purposes of the final field plan review is that we want to make sure that we are moving forward and that we're going to meet that scheduled let date. So what we want to make sure that we can, if we haven't acquired a property yet, we can give them an anticipated date of when we possibly will have that completed. So that is very important for us to keep a project moving. And also the construction transition meeting. We want to make sure that when we come to the construction transition meeting, and we want to make sure that somebody attends from our office, that 2 copies of the sign option and summary of the special conditions negotiated with the property owners for review and discussion, and any commitments to the property owner will be discussed during this meeting. We want to make sure that we give them all that they need to understand any agreements that we have made with property owners, anything that's going on. So the final field plan review is an important meeting, and the construction transition meeting. And I want to stress the construction transition meeting, because you could say to yourself, well, I just did what you said at the final field plan review. Yes, when you was at the final field plan review, you was talking to only internal people, just people within the department or the agency. Once you get to the construction transition meeting, you're gonna have somebody there that's a consultant that's actually gonna be doing the construction. And they will need this information as well. So we wanna make sure that we attend the construction transition meeting to communicate to those who are going to actually be doing the work, all the agreements and special conditions or anything that was discussed with that property owner, that these things will be handled. And performance management is just so very important. And GDOT has a timeline of when each activity is to be completed. So when it's time for a certain activity to be completed, we need to make sure that we're working on those things and working towards those things to make sure that those things are completed in a timely fashion. We also want to make sure that we're following the critical event schedule. And you can get a copy of the critical event schedule from your team manager, or acquisition manager, or right-of-way manager, whoever is in charge of the schedule of that project. You should be able to get a copy of the critical event schedule. And you want to make sure, I can't stress to you how important it is to follow the critical event schedule. It's very, very important that you follow the critical event schedule. And also, we want to make sure that we follow the timeline for right-of-way activities. In other words, you want to make sure that you make your offers in a timely fashion. You want to make sure that you make your relocation offers in a timely fashion. You want to make sure, because everything hinges on everything else. So you want to make sure that you always stay mindful of your schedule. And I always say that GDOT is like a big ship. And when it gets to you, you have to be ready to go. Because a lot of times it seems like it takes project development a long time. And it seems like, it's never going to get to the right-of-way phase. And I'm here to let you know that it might take it a long time to get to the right-of-way phase. But when it gets to the right-of-way phase, we have to be ready to go. We got to already have our ducks in a row and that we are moving in order to make sure that we're meeting all our deadlines and make sure that we meet our schedules. And the districts.